What's happening, guys? Today I want to do a really brief video on top speed mechanics and what we're looking for in our athletes when training top speed. So definitely for athletes playing sports, the top speed is probably the least important of the three phases. We have the drive phase, which is our first 4 to 6 steps. We have our acceleration phase when they're becoming less of a forward lean and still accelerating. And finally, we have top speed, which you'll find when you analyze sports, the athlete's going to spend the least amount of time at top speed. But it is also important to make sure we include top speed in our training because we don't want that to become one of our weaknesses. It's important to train everything. So when we're training athletes in top speed, what we're looking for is them to move into an upright posture. All right, so we want their bodies up nice and straight. Some athletes have bad habits of leaning forward or tilting their head back or starting to rotate through the torso. So what we want to see is our chin tucked, looking down the field. We want that torso nice and solid. We want that core switched on. They're swinging their arms, but they're not rotating. They're staying very straight in that top speed run. The next thing we're looking for is knees to hip height, and this is the same for the acceleration phase. We want that knee coming up to hip height. We don't want it any higher. I always tell my athletes, I'll give them a little bit of leeway. It can be a fraction lower than your hip, but for the most part, we want that knee coming up to hip height, all right, for maximum force production. The next thing we're looking for is that 90-degree arm swing. So we want our arms locked in that 90 degrees. Again, I give a little bit of leeway for my athletes, but they're swinging their hands cheek to cheek, and of course, avoiding rotating across their center line. The next thing is the foot strike. So this is important, again, for the acceleration and same in the top speed. When that foot is striking, we see it striking underneath that athlete's chin, all right? We don't want it to be striking out in front because we call that a deceleration step. As soon as they put that foot in front, the moment it hits the ground, it's actually slowing the athlete down. So we want to be continually producing force. So we're stepping that foot down, we're producing force that way with the foot. So as soon as it hits the ground, it's pushing back behind, and that is going to cause the athlete to propel forward. All right, so that's our foot strike. Next is our recovery phase. This is not quite as important again with athletes who play ball sports. This is starting to get a little bit technical as far as sprinting mechanics, but something worth looking at. As this foot here leaves the ground, all right, we want to be as efficient as possible to get it back in front and then hitting the ground again, okay? We want to be able to cycle that through as fast as possible. The faster you can get that foot back on the ground, the faster you can produce force. So we want to really cue that athlete to keep their foot dorsiflexed, and that means pulling their toes up to the top of their cleat. You can sometimes see with athletes on this back step, if their toe is pointing back behind them, it really makes this big swooping action, all right? So it just makes the motion a little bit bigger and less efficient. So what we want to do is cue that athlete as soon as that foot is coming off the ground. For the most part, we want that toe up position, and that's going to help them get that knee up and back into this position ready to strike the ground again, all right? So we want to minimize the amount of swooping and exaggerated movement behind the athlete. We want to make it as fast as possible, getting that recovery position back. Now, I don't like to give the athlete too many cues on that because a lot of different athletes have a lot of different running styles, and I'm not a sprinting coach, so we can't spend too much time and energy on that little part, but it is definitely worth something looking at. Now, for the top speed mechanics, this is when we have the shortest ground contact time for that foot. So when it comes to working outside sprinting, there is not really a lot you can do in the gym that is going to help your top speed mechanics, all right? The best thing to get better at top speed is to run at top speed. There's not really much of a substitute for actual top speed running. So obviously, it being the shortest ground contact time, it means we're talking about fast twitch fibers and neural pathways. So what we really want to do is things in the gym like plyometrics, we really want to exaggerate that short ground contact times. Anytime we're doing jumping or hopping, we want to be on the ground for as short time as possible. All right, we don't want to be on the ground producing lots of force. It's fast, it's explosive. As soon as that foot hits the floor, you're propelling yourself and producing force. So this is some of the keys I look at for training top speed with my athletes. Again, it's not as important as the drive phase and acceleration, but definitely something you want to consider when doing speed training with your athletes.